humanitarian crisis. Well, I want to thank, first of all, our state and local governments who are really stepping to the plate and ensuring that we serve those who are struggling most. Colleagues, Oregonians are expecting action on this issue, and that's why exactly what we are delivering today. My colleagues later on will go through the process of breaking down this package, but I want to also share with you a little bit about how we prioritize these issues. There's a 4 key areas that we're prioritizing that I want to go over with you today. First, we want to address the immediate needs around homelessness. We know we are facing housing crisis in our streets. Our investments must be prioritizing addressing immediate needs and helping folks into the shelter and housing now. The second area we want to address is that building an investments to increase the supply of affordable housing. We have to face this issue as today's issue and tomorrow's issue. That must be done collectively. We want also keeping people in affordable homes and preventing displacement. We have to make sure people who are now struggling and may be able to pay their rent to stay in their houses. And we want to make sure that we provide resources, those agencies who are working with those folks. Finally, we want to ensure that funds are spent quickly and efficiently. That's why we're investing existing programs right now to ensure that all programs have a stable programs and ensuring also that we are acting quickly as collective agencies and communities. That's why I want to make sure that all of us address this issue in a ways that helps funding to go quicker and faster. With that said, again, I want to emphasize that we are facing humanitarian crisis. We have to be compassionate and approaching this issue a compassionate way. We want to make sure that Oregonians request and expecting actions, and that's why we are actually here in front of you today. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and hand over to my colleague, Representative Julie Fahey. Thank you so much. And unfortunately, I have to go to another hearing, so I'm going to be off this press conference. But again, thank you for joining with us. Chair Fahey.
Thank you, Senator Jama, and thank you, so much for your partnership over the last year on housing and homelessness issues. It's been great to have a partner in the Senate. We know that housing and homelessness and affordable housing are some of the biggest challenges that are facing our state right now. And we have heard very clearly from Oregonians that they want us to take action and they want us to see solutions that actually work. And so this package that we're talking about here today invests in programs and policies that are proven, effective, and compassionate, helping Oregonians and supporting local governments who are working to address their community's needs on the ground. So we are making key investments in solutions to homelessness, and that includes more funding for programs across the state that address immediate needs like shelter, outreach, and housing stability. Our North Star has to be making investments in programs and in housing that actually work to get people on the path out of homelessness, not just move folks from one place to another or warehouse them somewhere out of sight. These are local safety net services that catch people before they become homeless and that reach out to help get people off the street and into shelter or housing. This package also includes an additional $50 million for Project Turnkey, which is the innovative program that we stood up during the pandemic that has helped Oregon communities across the state acquire hotels and motels and other buildings that can be quickly converted into needed shelter or housing. The package, and it also includes grants to local governments who are doing this work on the ground to serve their communities, building up shelter capacity, connecting people to shelter and services, removing trash and debris, and providing hygiene services like portable toilets and washing stations. Every Oregonian deserves a safe and stable place to sleep at night, and this funding will help fund local governments following best practices and deploying effective, compassionate solutions in their communities. While we are working to increase services and shelter to help get people on the path out of homelessness, we also have to address some of the root causes of what we are facing. This package makes significant investments in our supply of affordable housing. That will help ensure that even with rents and the cost of living increasing, low-income families don't lose ground. It will also seed a fund to help first-time homebuyers make a down payment, and it will help more families navigate mortgages and the home buying process. I want to be clear that these investments will not solve every problem overnight, but Oregonians have immediate needs right now. And this package invests in real solutions to alleviate some of the challenges that our state is facing, while setting the stage for the longer term work that we have to do to address this crisis. I'm now going to pass it over to my mayor, Mayor Vinnis, the mayor of Eugene, who will speak to some of the work that is happening in the city of Eugene.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. And on behalf of the 8 mayors representing Bend, Beaverton, Eugene, Hillsborough, Gresham, Portland, Medford, and Salem, I would like to express our deep gratitude to Majority Leader Fahey and Senator Jama for their leadership support in understanding cities' immediate needs and responding to our request for assistance by bringing forth a comprehensive housing and homeless investment package. The homelessness crisis is front and center in our cities, affecting every aspect of our communities. This challenge demands partnership between cities, counties, service providers, businesses, and community members. With determination, teamwork, and ingenuity, our cities created a diverse range of new full-time year-round shelters, striving to balance livability, sanitation, safety, and security. The cost of these efforts is comparable to an ongoing natural disaster. These critical additional state resources allow us to press forward now to build and expand our work. In Eugene, we've added 357 shelter spaces since April 2020, including safe sleep sites, rest stops, and microsites that provide both lower barrier emergency shelter and recovery programs that help between 40 to 60% of residents progress to new levels of stability. We're providing warm, dry access to food, showers, laundry, medical, and other services, and working with service providers who nurture relationships, assess needs, and offer pathways to better lives. Our city staff have invested more than 25,000 hours in responding to nearly 8,000 community requests for service. We've cleaned thousands of yards of debris from streets and parks to address livability and sanitation. This state investment enables cities to continue this work, and it builds on the momentum of our collaboration between local, state, and federal governments throughout the pandemic. We all look forward to continuing to collaborate with the legislature to meet the long-term needs of our communities. Thank you again, and I would like to now turn it over to Representative Jason Krupp.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Jason Krupp, State Representative for House District 54 in Bend. I'd like to talk to you today about House Bill 4123 and how it will help communities have a coordinated response to houselessness. First, I want to share a little bit about what we're seeing in my community. I've been following the Bend Bulletin series, Faces of Homelessness, where folks who are unhoused share their stories. This series underscores that those who are unhoused and unsheltered are as diverse as our communities themselves. We know there are children, families, veterans, people with disabilities, and people struggling with mental health and addiction issues who are experiencing houselessness. We also know there are folks with lower wage jobs who just can't afford the rental and housing prices in Central Oregon and elsewhere in the state. It saddens me to know there are folks in my community going through this, but no, it is a top priority for me and for my community to tackle this crisis. To effectively address houselessness, we must lead with compassion, and we must work collaboratively and strategically. Taking this approach, House Bill 4123 funds 8 locally led pilot projects in communities across the state, helping them create coordinated homeless response systems. These pilot communities include a tribal nation, counties, cities, and community organizations in the Mid-Willamette Valley, the Gorge, Eastern and Central Oregon, and along our coast. Each pilot will establish a coordinated homeless response office to facilitate a more comprehensive approach to tackling this crisis. These offices will combine the efforts of local governments and community partners to provide high-level coordination, centralized communication and community engagement, and strategic planning. In doing so, our communities will be better positioned to leverage existing resources and to identify service and policy gaps to make sure we are helping people at risk of houselessness, connecting those in crisis with shelter, and creating pathways to more permanent housing. Pilots will be required to report back on their plans, their progress, challenges, and opportunities to help inform future policy decisions in their communities across the state, Houselessness does not have a one-size-fits-all solution. This bill recognizes that different communities across the state have unique needs when it comes to this issue and empowers them to innovate and adapt solutions that make sense for them. These pilot communities will create a more equitable, accessible, and responsive approach to houselessness. House Bill 4123 is an innovative and community-driven solution and is supported by direct service providers, community partners, and groups like the Association of Oregon Counties, the League of Oregon Cities, and the Oregon Housing Alliance. This legislation is a major opportunity for us to better respond to houselessness and help those in crisis. Thank you. And now I'll hand it over to my friend and colleague, Councilor Anthony Brodman of Bend.
Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties there. Thank you, Rep. Krupp, and thank you to all the legislators and my fellow city leaders who are stepping up on this issue. House Bill 4123 is really about developing a shared city-county service model to deliver solutions on homelessness in communities throughout the state. It'll provide $1 million each to 8 different pilot programs involving 36 local governments and other governments and community partners throughout the state, including in the Valley, on the coast, Central Oregon, Eastern Oregon, and in the Gorge. Although House Bill 4123 has not yet crossed the finish line, we are hopeful that it will in the coming days. And we thank the Oregon legislature for its willingness to partner with local governments like us here at the City of Bend and to catalyze this effort. We also thank them for their prioritization on this $400 million toward housing and houselessness this session. And we look forward to continuing state and local partnerships in years to come. I'll now hand it over to Representative David Gomberg of the Coast.
Well, thank you, Councilor. Hi, everybody. David Gomberg, State Representative from the Central Coast. And I'm also here today to speak in support of House Bill 4123. That's because as a coastal and a rural legislator, I've seen firsthand the plight of homelessness in our communities. In my home county, 20% of the kids, the students in our schools, are categorized as homeless, 1 in 5. That's an absolutely unacceptable statistic. And what we're talking about here are families, we're talking about seniors, we're talking about low-income workers, and yeah, we're talking about kids. In fact, I think it was my colleague, Commissioner Claire Hall, who in her testimony before the committee cited Lincoln County having the highest per capita rate of childhood homelessness in the entire state. House Bill 4123 ensure greater interjurisdictional cooperation and make the most of the resources we have so that service providers, nonprofits, and community organizations and local officials can better respond. Sounds like a lot of legislative jargon, doesn't it? Really what it's saying is that this bill will give us the tools to work together to address our most pressing problems. When considering this bill, we also heard from folks like Councilor Judy Casper of Lincoln City, who raised the need for greater coordination among nonprofit agencies in our areas to ensure we were better serving communities experiencing homelessness. Councilor Casper supported this legislation because it would, and I quote, continue to address the challenges of homelessness in rural areas with the resources and flexibility to fit our specific needs. This legislation will not only yield immediate relief, it will also collect information on what policies work best, allowing partners to exchange ideas and come up with the most effective solutions. It also requires pilot programs to report to the legislature so that we can use this information to create good future policy. I'm proud today to support House Bill 4123, and I look forward to continuing to be involved with my local communities and ensure that we're responding effectively and with compassion on the ground to these very pressing problems. So thank you again for listening today. I'd like to now turn to County Commissioner Claire Hall, who I referenced just a few moments ago.
Sorry, Commissioner Hall, we can't hear you. Oh, sorry. On my end, it sounds a little bit like Alvin and the Chipmunks. Maybe if you take off video. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Commissioner Hall, if it's okay with you, I'll make sure the press receive your remarks, if that's okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and go to Rep. Evans, and Commissioner Hall, if you're able to fix your audio, we can loop back to you.
Okay, how is my audio right
Oh,
now?
perfect. Okay, we'll go back to Commissioner Hall. Apologies.
Thank you very much. This program will give us a chance to make a meaningful difference in the challenge of homelessness in Lincoln County. Some people still think homelessness is a problem in our urban areas only, but that's not true. Widespread poverty, high housing prices, a constantly shifting population, inadequate health resources, and other factors constantly strain our modest resources. With better cooperation between cities, the county, nonprofits, the faith community, and others, and a coordinated plan, we'll be better poised to use our resources in the most efficient and effective ways possible. Thank you. And now I'll hand it over to Representative Evans.
Thank you, Commissioner. Can everybody hear me? Okay. I was asked to comment on this, and I want to start off with why I believe the package matters. The package as a whole is not just about policy, it's about bringing ideas and people together in common cause. For me, housing security matters because of my own life and background and experiences. You see, when my mother was a baby, her father walked out on her and her mother. Grandma Dorothy and her infant went to Independence because of the hop fields. In those days, not so unlike now, the housing was scarce, and they were fortunate to find housing. I remember stories about how they were remembered that they were very grateful because the converted chicken coop they lived in had a roof that didn't leak. Like so many who grew up in hard times, it's hard to put things together when you don't have the resources available. I believe this package makes those resources available and integrates programs and policies in a way that can actually create a shared vision as we move forward. I also believe that this package is consistent with the lessons I learned early in life about faith and the power of love in terms of charity and compassion. Right now, Oregonians are hurting. And though many people are coming out of the COVID experience reasonably intact, the folks who have struggled before, and quite frankly, were struggling before the contagion occurred, they're struggling more than ever before because they can't catch up. They don't have the same tools available to them that previous generations had. Though wages are increasing, the net wealth of working families has actually lagged behind over the last 3 decades, and the last 3 years have not helped. It's harder now. The working poor simply do not have the tools they need, and I believe this package actually puts pieces in place so that we can move people forward with dignity and respect. And I say that because this is an issue of basic human dignity. We are supposed to do everything possible to ensure our neighbors have a safe and secure place to live. I was raised to believe that's in fact what the American dream was all about an America that is a place where hard work, a safe place to live, the opportunity to raise your family, to live without fear are the things that people could depend upon, things you can build a life around. I serve in this legislature because I believe our people in place are special. I believe we're a family, and like a family, we're navigating very challenging times. And like a family, you don't leave people behind. You struggle for equal and fair and just and sustainable programs that can bring everybody along, each at their own tempo, but all moving forward. Right now, a lot of people are on the brink. And in Salem, the third largest city, we do have some resources, more than some smaller communities, but our resources are being stretched. It's hard to stabilize people in crisis. Quite frankly, bringing people and the elements together of mental health care and housing and skills and jobs, it is a very difficult process that is not cheap, it is not easy, and it sure isn't fast. But it is something that can be done. This package puts $165 million toward addressing homelessness through different services and programs. It puts $215 million toward preventing current housing from going away and ensuring affordable housing sustainability and building new where we need it. And it puts $20 million toward helping people get into that first home and create stability. I believe this plan, this package reflects our values. I also believe it is a smart strategic investment in the future. Before I pass it on, I want to praise Jimmy Jones and the folks at the Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency that have made veterans homelessness a priority. I'm grateful for all the work done for my brothers and sisters at arms, and I know that they are making a profound difference, like all of their peers across the state, each and every day. Right now, we need to keep our eyes on the ball and move it forward, because we cannot afford to let this opportunity pass us by. This is our moment to try to bring people along and move forward in common cause. And at this point, it's my great honor to introduce my friend, colleague, and my own state senator, Deb Patterson.
Thank you so much, Representative Evans, and thank you for all that you're doing on this issue. And Representative Hoy, city councilors in all of the cities in this district, there's much that we're doing together. I'm so grateful to be here today. Thank you for the opportunity. In my 30 years of experience as ordained clergy, primarily working in healthcare advocacy, I've seen firsthand the catastrophic impacts that housing insecurity has had on families and community members and the overall health of our communities. Too many students don't have a home to go to after school. Too many families are living out of their cars. Too many veterans are living in tents. Too many seniors are living in RVs or at risk of losing the affordable housing they have now. I've seen the physical and mental health impacts of housing insecurity, and I know how critical it is to direct resources to address homelessness. I'm honored to take part in this work, knowing the urgent need to bring immediate assistance and help to provide opportunities for people to get off the streets and into stable housing. It's not good for our community to have people living on the sidewalks and in the doorways of businesses and in our city parks. And it's not good for the people who are living without housing either. We need to take action now. And I'm proud of the historic investments we are going to make this session to address homelessness. As part of the work, we know this budget will have to focus on growing Salem's response to much needed support services to respond to the unhoused emergency across our communities here. Look, I know that homelessness is a complex issue and we need to use all the tools available to us. I'll be advocating for state investments in emergency shelters through micro shelter village communities, which are supported, and safe parking programs. These would be transitional solutions moving to permanent solutions. Over the past year, I've been encouraged by the growing community action to address homelessness in my district. I've toured a Salem business facility working on building micro shelters that private citizens are investing in. I was able to designate $750,000 in ARPA funds towards the purchase of Arches Inn, a place that will provide housing for nearly 100 families and individuals in need of assistance for a safe place to live. I'm excited we were able to find funding for housing with supportive services at Yaquina Hall at the Oregon State Hospital grounds, and that funding we designated for a navigation center last session is close to launching soon as well. I'll be supporting budget action to bolster nonprofit work programs. We need to direct funding toward a grant program here in this area for a nonprofit to hire employees with lived homeless experience to respond to and help to clean up unmanaged homeless areas, of which there are still several as well. So thank you for the opportunity to participate in this historic effort that we're working together. I would now like to pass it on to Representative Meek, my friend.
Good afternoon. I'm very proud to voice my support today for this housing package. One critical aspect will be building affordable housing and supporting home ownership. Oregon needs to build more housing. And as a realtor, I know that too many families struggle to make ends meet with rising rents and home prices. It's time to stop making excuses. With these investments, we can take an active role in building more affordable housing to help bring down the cost. I am particularly excited about the prospect of incoming investments for building and preserving affordable housing. This includes sizable investments to keep current affordable housing units available and building new affordable homes to rent and buy. It also includes supporting affordable housing construction projects that are struggling with market conditions and supply chain disruptions due to the pandemic. Taking steps to protect and grow Oregon's affordable housing supply also means supporting manufactured housing parks to keep them affordable, seeding investments to produce new affordable manufactured homes, and assisting with land acquisition for affordable housing projects. Supporting homeownership is critical to building generational wealth. Oregon needs to focus on building pathways to homeownership, which is why I co-chaired the task force on addressing racial disparities in homeownership. This means making investments to increase capacity for homeownership centers and other nonprofits that help families navigate homeownership, mortgages, and the home buying process. We will also be looking at ways to support Hacienda CDC in launching a home loan program to help first-time homebuyers across the state to make down payments. We know that homeownership is crucial to building wealth for Oregon families, and expanding opportunities for homeownership means that we can help folks from all backgrounds build generational and intergenerational wealth for their families. Thank you very much, and I want to pass it on to Ernesto Fonseca, Chief Executive Officer at Hacienda CDC.
Thank you very much, Representative Meek, senators. Thank you very much, Representative Meek and senators and city leaders. It is truly an honor to be here and a privilege really to be part of this greater effort that the state of Oregon is taking in order to address the many housing issues that we're facing in the state. My name is Ernest Fonseca, and as Representative Meek said, I am the Chief Executive of Hacienda CDC, and I am here to strongly support HB 4123 and to share with you a mortgage program that will provide a pathway for Oregonians throughout the state to purchase their first home. As you know, many families and individuals struggle to reach a crucial step to housing stability, home ownership. One of the biggest barriers is the significant down payment required. This is not an urban or rural issue, but a statewide issue that we need to address as soon as possible. While families and individuals work to save for the down payment, housing prices continue to climb, and frankly, the increasing cost of living makes it hard to make ends meet, let alone save for a house. Many of the low down payment mortgage loans that people are accessing today require mortgage insurance, which in many cases stays there for the life of the loan and keeps increasing the price of those homes, for these families. Hacienda's second mortgage loan will help families buy their first home sooner. It will help them keep their savings they have for difficult times while meeting the 20% minimum that lenders require to avoid costly fees. This program will support families across the state who need a boost to make that down payment. Families will be able to purchase their first home at a monthly cost that fits their budget, and with our backing, they can achieve the stability, safety, and wealth creation that homeownership offers. We all know that too many Oregonians are facing high rents and a rising cost of living, and this is not a good way of living. We need creative solutions to help families build wealth and find the stability that many of us are lucky enough to experience. I am proud of the work that Hacienda has done to address the barriers to homeownership, and we are really, really excited to bring this new program forward to give families a better future across the entire state. This is perhaps, one of the biggest challenges that we have today, long-term housing stability, and homeownership is something that we can do today renting and building affordable housing, it is the right step, but we need to build that bridge between renting and homeownership so we can build that wealth and keep families where they are. We cannot be living, in this state of, what is going to be my rent next month? So with this said, I really, really appreciate this greater effort, senators, representatives, city leaders, and thank you so much for having us today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fonseca. And now I'm going to open up for press Q&A. If you are a member of the press, please use the raise your hand. And we did have a question in the chat from Peter Wong of Pamplin, so I'm going to go ahead and read that. And if we could just take the spotlight off Ernesto. So Peter says, this problem didn't occur overnight and won't be resolved overnight, but how will we know if the infusion of money into these programs will produce results? That is, fewer people unhoused and on the streets and more people in transition to permanent and affordable housing. Yeah, I'll go ahead and let our legislators, Rep. Fahey or whomever, respond.
Thank you, Hannah, and thank you, Peter. It's a great question. I think, one of the things that you heard in the introduction is that we prioritized investing these funds into proven programs that have shown results in getting people on that path out of homelessness. So I would just flag for, as an example, Project Turnkey, which we've invested about $75 million in over the last 18 months to acquire hotels and motels and convert them to, safe, socially distanced shelters. We have the results of that initial round of funding, and that was 867 rooms created and a 20% increase in Oregon's supply of emergent housing. So we can go back and say that program was a success. There was some question at the beginning, is this something we could get up and running during the pandemic and have it be successful? And I think the verdict is in on that. And so we went through several months of, vetting, was there the need and the demand for another round of funding for that program, and landed on a $50 million infusion for a second round. So we hope to see that, with the protections we had in making that decision, we think that could potentially buy 10 more properties. So, we're expecting to see those results. And each of the programs that we're funding has those sort of accountability and oversight and report back mechanisms about what the results were.
Great. I'm going to next call on Jonathan Bach of Portland Business Journal. Jonathan.
Hello, Jonathan Bach with the PBJ here. You actually just answered my question about Project Turnkey, which was to say the $50 million that is slated to go there. Sounds like you're looking at about 10 property acquisitions. So I actually wanted to turn to the affordable housing development question, which is with the 165 that you're looking to funnel toward affordable housing development. Do you have a sense of which program that would go to? I know that LIFT has been sort of the flagship affordable housing development program for state officials. Is there any sort of breakout for that?
There is. So, and that funding would be for preservation, construction and land acquisition. So we've got the full breakdown of 65 million in preservation dollars that will help keep currently affordable housing affordable, publicly subsidized affordable housing for families that are in those supported units, preventing displacement. $55 million to invest in building new affordable homes to rent or to buy. I don't know how much in the details to get of this, but some of that would be yes, the LIFT program for rental housing, and then supplementing funding for LIFT homeownership that are affordable houses to buy. $35 million to both acquire manufactured housing parks to keep them affordable. We have an existing program on that, and to seed some investment to produce new manufactured housing. And $10 million for a land acquisition to put to the existing land acquisition program for affordable housing projects. And then $50 million to support affordable housing construction projects that are struggling with market and supply chain disruptions due to the pandemic. That was a program that we launched, I believe, last year with some funding, and are adding to that existing program. So I think the key theme there is, taking a look at what are the programs we currently have in existence, and what is the need and the capacity to spend in each of those programs, and adding funding to each of them in a way that can get that funding out the door quickly and efficiently.
Exactly. And just as a quick follow-up, I apologize. I said 165 to affordable housing. That was the homelessness. And I think it was 200 plus to affordable housing. But to that end, we've seen over the recent years, hundreds of millions of dollars. And to Peter's question, hundreds of millions of dollars going to affordable housing development. Do you see that as a foreseeable sort of, not line item, but for the foreseeable future in Oregon? Big 100 plus or 200 or 300 or $400 million housing packages becoming the norm every single session, for the foreseeable future in Oregon?
I think we're fortunate to have resources right now to address the challenge and to devote to that challenge. And so knowing that and knowing how significant of a crisis housing affordability and homelessness is in our state, we wanted to devote these resources to addressing that challenge this session and last session. We had record investments last session as well. And one to in full disclosure, some of these resources are housing and sort of infrastructure is a good place to spend on one-time funding on. And so this is, it is both a priority, and we're fortunate to have the resources to spend in a one-time way. But we're committed to this sort of bold policy that addresses our homelessness and housing crisis, and that is why we are here today. We're not going to know exactly what kind of funding we'll have in 2023, but what I can say is that we're setting aside a part of the budget so that we can make sure we have resources for the next years to continue to help Oregonians. And I, for one, in the legislature, and I know many of my colleagues on this call will be advocating for homelessness and housing to be a big part of our budgets in the future.
Thank you. Majority Leader. And now I'm going to go ahead and call on Julia Schumacher of the Oregon Capitol Chronicle. Julia.
Thanks. And this is for some of the local leaders on the call. I want to know if you have lists of projects or an idea in your communities of projects that you would like to see funded with this new funding that would be made available.
Mayor Lucy Venus, I'm very happy to step in on this question right away. So we have invested in some innovative projects in the last year, in particular in terms of safe sleep sites, which enables us to get people sort of out of the parks and out of the mud and the rights of way and get them into a safer spot where they can stabilize their lives and where we can connect them to services. So we look forward to being able to provide services to those folks who are in those safe sleep sites. We have set an ambitious goal. We've opened a couple of those sites already. One that houses about 55 units, one that houses actually a interior space with individual tents that has enough for 86 people. So we're moving forward on these larger sites. And we're looking forward to being able to extend outreach services, more outreach services to people on the streets and in those sites. So the foundation is already set for these programs. They're already established programs. We've learned a lot in the last couple of years on some of these innovations. And so, yes, we look for being able to expand that and have more robust support for them.
If I could jump in on that question as well, Patterson is from Salem. As I mentioned, we had some private citizens step up to over $600,000 was raised to purchase more than 120 microshelters. And we need the funding to support the staff who will provide wraparound services to folks in those managed communities. A lot of the funding that will be very useful is bricks and mortar funding, obviously, but certainly there are projects ready to go right this second, could be operational tomorrow when we have the dollars. So I'm going to let others speak to this as well.
I can just add for the city of Bend, we have a goal of providing 500 beds in the next year. We're 280 beds into that goal. We've obviously taken full advantage of Project Turnkey on one hotel used general fund dollars to purchase a second hotel. We're in the process of closing on that and have opened a 100-bed shelter with great help from the legislature and Rep. Krupp. So it feels sometimes like an unending need, but there are multiple projects that we can support that are already, I would call shovel ready and expanding towards our goal of 500 beds.
Great. Any other local leaders? Okay, I'm going to go ahead then and call on Kathy with the Guardian Liberty Voice. Kathy, go ahead.
I'm wondering if there are any studies done on successful transitioning. Are there been any studies on people who have been homeless and successfully become not homeless and remain that way for a period of time?
I know that there are certainly those studies that exist, and I personally, as a legislator, I'm a pretty data-driven person, and so have looked at a variety of different approaches to this, and that's why when I talk about our North Star being programs that have been proven to be effective, that was part of the prioritization effort in trying to allocate the funding. So I don't know, Mayor Vinnis went off mute. I don't know if you want to add.
I was just going to support what you said, Representative Fahey. We are working with providers who are very well established. So we're working with St. Vincent de Paul. We're working with an organization called Community Supported Shelters. We work with one called Square One Villages. They all have very established track records, and they can all provide the data. So in my statement, I refer to that it ranges from 40 to 60% of the folks coming through those recovery programs move on to a more stable setting. So we do have that data and are continuing to learn from that data about the structure of those programs, what we need to modify in order to increase the success rate.
And I think we're lucky that, we can look not just to Oregon, but the work that's being done in other states and program evaluations that are being done on, I read interesting articles every day about a universal basic income program for unhoused folks in California, or housing first approaches in Utah. We're fortunate to be able to have good data and to learn from not just what's happening the good things that are happening in Oregon, but in other states as well.
Thank you, Majority Leader and Kathy. And now I'm going to call on Sam Stites of OPB.
Thanks, Hannah. Hey, everybody. I was just hoping if maybe somebody could run me through kind of what's next in terms of the process for getting this over the finish it line. I know that Rep. Krupp's bill is getting a hearing later this afternoon, or in about an hour. Will the rest of this be a part of the budget process? I guess, what's the process basically?
So most of the investments will be included in the end of session budget bill that will be released next week. We do have some individual bills, like you said, HB 4123, and I believe House Bill 4013, which provides funding for runaway or unaccompanied homeless youth. But for the most part, the vast majority of the funding will be in the end of session budget bills. Yeah, 4113 will be up for a vote tomorrow, I think, in the House.
Great.
Krupp's bill is moving its way through Ways and Means, and then everything else I think will be in the final budget bills.
Great, thank you, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Sam. Any other questions? Great. Well, I just want to give a big thanks to everyone, our reporters, our legislators, counselors, mayors, community leaders for being here today. I greatly appreciate it. If you haven't gotten the press release, please send me a quick email or text, and I will make sure you get it, and happy to answer any questions you have at post press conference. So thanks so much, everyone, and hope everyone has a great rest of the week.
Thank you all.
Bye.